I have written a program that draws isometric top-down maps for classic Doom, like this one, right from the WAD file. More on that and also about WAD files in this video. Hello and welcome to Games Computers Play. This video is a bit unusual. We're not going to write a program that plays a game, we're not going to simulate a game. This project is still about a game though, and not just any game, but the father of all modern first-person shooters. Doom. Not this one, this one. Doom is one of the greatest yada yada yada. So I have created a program that takes a Doom data file, also known as a WAD file, and generates an image like this one. And if you ever play Doom, you must have recognized the very first level of the very first episode of the very first Doom game. But let's start from the beginning. A few years ago, I saw a video of YouTuber Big Mac Davis playing Doom, and although I haven't played Doom in 10 or 15 years at that point, I found that it aged super well. I also found out about Source ports, and I was hooked again, playing through levels so familiar from those teenage years. Naturally, I wanted to read up on some of the Doom stuff, and somewhere in one of the Doom wikis, I found a link to a website of a gentleman named Ian Albert. One of the things that Ian Albert did was exactly this: Doom levels maps drawn in the isometric perspective. I did find them really cool, and I always thought it was a shame he only did those for levels in the main Doom 1 and Doom 2 games, as there are hundreds and thousands of community-made levels that are as cool as, and sometimes cooler than the original ones. Wouldn't it be fun to look at those levels in that magnificent isometric perspective? However, legend has it that the original program that was written in Java was lost forever. Alas. This is where I decided to make it my next Python project. Replicate what Ian Albert did and maybe do a few things better, if possible. So, follow me on this journey to depict Martian demon-ridden hellscapes in the metric orthogonal 3D projection. We'll start with how WAD files work, then a few words about what my program can do, and finally a gallery of a few notable pictures I've generated. WAD files are pretty well documented. There are several Doom wikis out there with some good information, and also something that is called unofficial documentation that was really invaluable. Alright, let's just jump into reading that WAD file, which by the way stands for Where is all the data, because that is where all the data is. When I started to untangle the WAD format, it really reminded me of one of those point-and-click adventure games, very popular in the 90s. I used to be a big fan of those. Get an item here, bring it over there, it will give you another piece, bring that piece to the next place will give you next thing, and so forth and so on. It goes, I think, 6 or 7 layers deep like that, until you actually get all the lumps. Lumps are what those nuggets of information in those WAD files are called. It was actually quite fun to follow this trail. Here, a diagram I put together to give you a sense of what we are dealing with here. Let's see how that works. It all starts with what is called vertices, or in layman's terms, points or dots on which the level will be based on. It's like connect the dots, but before any connections are made. Here they all are, with all the coordinates. Next up, line defs. These are just lines that connect the vertices. There can be some important game mechanics attached to the line defs, but we don't care about it in this project. With these two, vertices and line defs, you pretty much have your automap in front of you. Each line def can have 0, 1 or 2 side defs. Side defs hold information about walls. Texture for the wall, texture for the side part of the ceiling, side part of the floor, but let's skip them for a moment. What's important is that each side def, that is each section of the wall, has a sector number attached to it. And a sector, in other words, is an area of the map. So from each wall you can start a flood fill that would color certain section of the map. Here they all are. Now let's skip ahead a little bit again and talk about how to make it appear 3D. Not in the game, but just in our picture. So what I do is I shift each sector a little bit to the side, and the higher a sector is, the bigger is the shift. Maybe it will not make sense right now at the moment, and you'll get it later. Or maybe you already start recognizing some objects. Next step, let's actually use textures instead of those colors. Doom treats textures for walls and textures for floors very differently. So even the names that are used are different. Textures for the floors are called flats. And here you go. We have flats in our picture. Let's now get back to those side defs. As I mentioned, each one represents a portion of a wall, a flat rectangular piece. But here, with all the distortions in our picture, it's going to be a parallelogram. Look, here they're all nicely colored in random colors. Now, let's apply textures to the walls too. Doom uses a few interesting tricks to use WAD space for textures as efficiently as possible, so it's a bit of a hassle to put it all together. But when you finally get everything done, you get something like this. Next thing is to add lighting. Here you can see all the textures in their default brightness level, but in an actual Doom level, each sector has a certain lighting level, or about 30 of them, that makes everything in the sector a little darker. So let's apply that. So now we have a nice level map, which looks pretty much like what we see in the game. Except, of course, our dearest friends, the monsters. They are in the next piece of info, in the next lump, called things. Things hold all the monsters, of course, and also all the items you can pick up, like health or ammo, guns, power-ups, and also all the decorations you see. Barrels, torches, those kebab shop ads and open heart surgeries in progress. Most of the items look the same from all angles. But as for the monsters, they look differently from different sides. So the WAD file not only tells you where the monster is, but also which direction he or she faces. So all I needed to do was get those sprites and paste them into my picture. Let's do that. I will omit a few technical details, like using something that is called Z buffer to make sure all the objects appear correctly and overlap in the right order. It gets a bit technical, so let's skip it, I guess. Meanwhile, we're almost there. This is not isometric projection yet. This is what is called a military projection. In military projection, the floor plan is undistorted and walls are kind of leaning to the side, making parallelograms. Final step, let's make it even more lifelike by applying a couple of transformations. First, rotation, and then scaling down the y-axis a little, just a little bit. What we have as a result is a so-called dimetric orthographic projection, I think. Not 100% sure. Anyway, this is the final result. There was a little more to that, as I tested this script on a few hundreds of maps from Doom top WADs of all time, but let's skip over it. Let's just say it works like 90% of the time. Now, if you want to give it a spin yourself, you can find the link to the script in the description. Should be quite easy to use. Only very basic Python knowledge is needed. And with that, I will leave you with some of the images it has generated, and I hope you'll enjoy those images. Click a like button if you do, subscribe for more videos about Python and games, and hope to see you next time. Bye.